Prices aren't just rising, they're skyrocketing. And this isn't a future problem, it's happening right now. By the end of this year, you could be paying $1,000 more just to afford the same life. That's like losing an entire paycheck, gone. But here's the real concern. Inflation is just the start. With interest rates climbing, wages stagnating, and corporations profiting, the middle class is under siege. So what's really happening? Is this just inflation, or are we heading for an economic shift that could change everything? Stick around, because if you don't act now, your financial future might look very different. Welcome to Cashkeys, where we break down financial trends that impact your everyday life. Inflation in 2025 isn't just another headline. It's a direct threat to your paycheck, your savings, and your future. But here's the real debate. Are rising interest rates actually helping, or are they making life even harder? Some argue they're necessary to stabilize the economy. Others say they're pushing the middle class further into debt. What do you think? Drop a comment below. I want to hear how rising costs are affecting your daily life. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand what's happening, you'll know exactly what to do about it. 1. Inflation in 2025. What's really happening? Inflation has been a persistent issue for years, and despite efforts to bring it under control, it's still here. In 2024, the Federal Reserve set a target of 2%, but in 2025, we're still looking at 2.5% to 2.9%. That might sound minor, but when prices rise faster than wages, every dollar you earn loses value. The reality? Even if you're making the same paycheck, it now buys less than it did a year ago. Grocery prices have surged by 5.8% in the past year. If you used to spend $200 per week on food, you're now paying $220 or more, and that difference adds up over months. Housing isn't any better. Shelter inflation remains at 4.6%, which means renters are paying an extra $100 to $300 per month, depending on location. Even utilities are taking a hit. Gas and electricity costs have risen by 3.9%, which translates to an additional $30 to $50 per month just to keep the lights on or commute to work. Now let's put this into perspective. Imagine walking into your local grocery store, grabbing the same staples: milk, eggs, bread, fresh produce. But when you reach the checkout, your total is higher. Not just by a few cents, but by dollars. Week after week, month after month, these small increases pile up. Before you know it, your grocery bill has ballooned by hundreds of dollars per year. And it's not stopping. Eating out? The same thing. That $15 meal last year? Now it's pushing $20. It's a slow drain on your wallet, and the worst part? There's no sign of relief. Is inflation really under control? Some economists say inflation is under control compared to the 9.1% peak in 2022. They point to the lower numbers and tell us to feel relieved. But ask the average American, does this feel like relief? Tell that to families choosing between groceries and gas. Tell that to renters who see their costs rising faster than their paychecks. If 2.9% inflation is the new normal, does that mean we're just expected to accept a lower quality of life? This raises a critical question. If 2.9% inflation is the new normal, does that mean we just have to accept higher prices forever? Or is there something we can actually do to fight back? What do you think? Is inflation really under control? Or are we just being told to accept a more expensive reality? How has it affected your daily life? Are you spending more, saving less, or cutting back? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your experience because if we don't talk about this, who will? 2. Rising interest rates, helping or hurting? To combat inflation, the Federal Reserve has aggressively raised interest rates to 4.5%, the highest level in decades. In theory, this should slow down spending, reduce demand, and cool off rising prices. But here's the problem. The burden isn't shared equally. While corporations adjust, everyday Americans are left scrambling. Because when borrowing gets more expensive, so does everything else, from mortgages to credit cards to car loans. And for many, the financial strain is becoming impossible to ignore. The cost of borrowing has skyrocketed. Since interest rates started rising, the average monthly mortgage payment has surged by over $500. That's not just an inconvenience. It's the difference between building wealth through home ownership or staying stuck paying rent. Car loans. They've hit a 20-year high, with average interest rates now exceeding 7.5%, making financing a vehicle more expensive than ever. And if you rely on credit cards to cover everyday expenses, you're paying the price, literally. The average credit card interest rate is now 24%, meaning for every $1,000 of debt, you're handing over an extra $240 per year, just in interest alone. Let's put this into real life. Meet Jake. Like many, he worked hard, saved up, and was ready to buy his first home. He found the perfect place, locked in a mortgage, and got pre-approved. Then, interest rates spiked. Overnight, his mortgage payment shot up by $700 more per month than it would have been just a year ago. That's not an upgrade. It's just the new reality of borrowing. So, what did Jake do? He walked away. He's still renting, watching home. Prices climb even higher, while his dream of home ownership slips further and further out of reach. And Jake's story isn't unique. It's happening to millions of Americans, and Jake isn't alone. Millions of Americans are stuck in the same position. They're unable to buy homes, unable to save, and paying more just to stay in the same place. Is this really fixing inflation, or just creating new problems? Some say raising rates was necessary. Without it, inflation could have spiraled even further out of control, and maybe that's true. But here's the question no one's answering. If this is working, why does everything still feel unaffordable? Why are home prices still climbing? Why are wages still lagging behind? Because while middle-class Americans are struggling, corporations are doing just fine, reporting record profits, raising prices, and passing the costs on to you. Because while middle-class Americans are struggling, corporations are reporting record profits. Banks? They're charging higher interest on loans, but still offering minimal returns on savings accounts. Big businesses? They're using high rates as an excuse to raise prices even further, even when they don't need to. Investors? They're benefiting from rising bond yields while the average person struggles to afford rent. So, let's break it down. Who's really winning here? Are higher interest rates actually helping you, or are they just another way to transfer wealth upwards? The debate. Necessary evil or economic disaster? Now, here's where opinions split. Some say raising interest rates was necessary. If we didn't, inflation would be even worse. Others argue that this is just crushing the middle class, while corporations keep making record profits. But let's be real. What's your experience? Have higher interest rates helped stabilize your cost of living, or are you feeling squeezed more than ever? Drop a comment below. So, let's break it down. Who's really winning here? Are higher interest rates actually helping everyday Americans, or are they just making it harder to get ahead? Are you paying more for housing, struggling with debt, or finding it harder to save? Let me know in the comments, because if we don't talk about it, nothing changes. 3. What can you do to protect your money? Inflation isn't just an abstract concept. It's a direct attack on your financial security. Every month, your paycheck covers less. Groceries cost more, rent keeps climbing, and even the essentials feel out of reach. If you don't make the right moves now, you could be losing thousands of dollars without even realizing it. But here's the good news. You're not powerless. There are proven ways to protect your money and even grow your wealth during inflation. Let's break them down. The safest place for your money isn't always a savings account. If your cash is sitting there earning just 0.5% interest, while inflation runs at 2.9%, you're losing purchasing power every single day. That's why investing in assets that rise with inflation is crucial. Take gold, for example. It's up 12% in the past year. Or the S&P 500, which has climbed 17%, outpacing inflation entirely. Even rental properties have increased 8 to 10% annually, helping investors build long-term wealth. The key isn't just saving, it's making your money work for you so it doesn't lose value while you wait. The second key to surviving inflation? Reducing debt and cutting unnecessary expenses. Right now, credit card interest rates are averaging 24%, the highest in decades. If you have a $5,000 balance, you're paying over $1,200 a year just in interest. And that's money you could be keeping for yourself. Look at your spending. Are you paying for subscriptions you forgot about? Ordering takeout too often? Even small changes can add up. Cutting just $100 a month from your budget saves you $1,200 a year, enough to offset inflation without completely changing your lifestyle. The less you owe, the more control you have over your financial future. Want to fight inflation? Start earning beyond your paycheck. Relying on just one income stream is risky, especially when the cost of living keeps climbing. That's why more people than ever are turning to side hustles, freelancing, and passive income sources like dividend stocks. Take Mike, for example. He works a regular 9 to 5 but decided to start a small e-commerce store on the side. At first, he made just $150 a month, but within 6 months, his extra income had grown to $800, enough to cover rent increases and rising grocery costs without touching his main paycheck. And Mike isn't alone. Whether it's an online business, gig work, or investing, finding an extra income stream can be the difference between struggling and staying ahead of inflation. Now, it's your turn. Are you investing to outpace inflation? Cutting back on expenses? Finding new ways to earn? What's working for you and what's still a struggle? Drop a comment below. Let's share strategies, because in times like these, every dollar matters. Inflation isn't just numbers on a chart. It's affecting your life every single day. Your paycheck doesn't stretch as far. Groceries cost more. Rent keeps going up. And if you don't take action, it's only going to get worse. The biggest mistake? Doing nothing. The smartest move? Preparing now, because the people who act today will be the ones who stay ahead tomorrow. If you found this helpful, don't just watch, take action. Hit like, subscribe to Cashkeys, and turn on notifications so you never miss a strategy to keep your money safe. We break down the biggest financial trends every week, giving you the tools to thrive in any economy. Want to know the smartest ways to build wealth, no matter what happens to the economy? Watch this next video right here. See you there.